Hello, and welcome to podcast episode 146 of the Sacred Remembering podcast. I'm Sarah Poet, and I am here with Audrey Maddox, sister, friend, colleague, inspiration of mine. And goodness, this is like a rebirth of Sacred Remembering, and there's really no one that I'd rather be here with, Audrey. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, Audrey knows Sacred Remembering very, very closely and walks this path. So we are going to reintroduce today in this episode, talk about kind of where things are, present moment, present time, and where we are, activated in our own lives and what we feel happening. And first, we are going to just allow the energetics of this space to set with everyone, because as I was tuning in, as we were beginning, there is a new energetic in the field. I'll say, like, the energetics that are holding this space are very different. And you could hear that in the introduction if you're listening to the audible or audio version of the podcast. And if you're watching it on YouTube, go ahead and listen to the Apple and Spotify versions, because this new intro is really taking us into this new earth space. And so let's just allow for some deep breathing here. And, if you're not driving, if you're in a space where it's safe to do so, you could close your eyes. And first, breathe into the body, noticing that vertical channel of the body that connects heaven and earth, or whatever words you use for that, source and earth, with that heart in the center. Just noticing your presence. And then if you choose to, noticing this field of sacred remembering around you. It's holding this space. There's a lot of rose frequency in that space today and always, but it's really showing up today. And I'm feeling, this is unique, but I'm feeling this like Leo lion energy. I mean, we're close to the Lion's Gate. So if you feel that, it feels kind of like a white lion, like a little bit of a sacred fierceness. That energy is here. And of course, this regenerative nature frequency. And a lot of really golden light. I'll call that Christed light. And that's merging and kind of electrifying that rose frequency. So those are all available and all in the field. And, sacred remembering is like re-emerging. And so this field is recalibrating. So we're going to continue to feel that maybe throughout the first few episodes, who knows, but giving gratitude to the space of sacred remembering and the activation that's happening on the planet now and happening in us as women, modern women, waking up to the truth of who we are, standing in that truth. And welcoming all of the supports that want to assist the true activation of the feminine on the planet and women at this time. and welcoming that activation with grace and ease. And also just trusting that that activation can happen with grace and ease. Something I'm still calibrating in my own field. We can be fully supported to stand in the truth of who we are, living prosperously in that truth. And that as we commit and align to that truth, we do have support. We're not alone. Audrey, is there anything you would add?
I just want to name the gratitude that I'm feeling. And it, as always, seems to be on my heart, just calling in integrity and love into the conversation today.
Beautiful. Taking a deep breath into the body. Again, feeling that rose frequency kind of emanating even through the cells. Whoa. Beautiful. Well, I don't think that I've opened any other episode of the podcast in years that way. So this is a good sign that we're off to the right start. And yeah, if you're like, what just happened? I think we're in this space of like everyday ceremony at this point. It's like, this is what we're doing. We're waking up, and it is holy and it is sacred, and it is something that we are, weaving into like every day. I mean, there's I give gratitude, like less and less separation all the time.
Yeah, I feel that. Actually, I kind of feel the opposite, but I have that desire, right? Because I work a 9 to 5 and it's data and it's very finite, and which is why I wanted that job, right? Like, so I could go in, do my thing, and then have energy to do the rest of my life. But maybe going off script here already is like kicking off a conversation, and like, how do we as women with careers practice sacred remembering, so
Yeah.
we don't feel this, I have this life and then I have like that part of my life. So sorry, I
Right.
took us off script already. Baby.
Yeah, well, there is no script really, but I think like it speaks to this bigger, conversation about, well, how did we get here? Like, we live in, I'll say a paradigm that we're healing from, and there's been a lot of separation where we thought like, well, I have to sacrifice this part of myself to get that, or have to sacrifice this part of myself, have to sacrifice my truth in order to have the love of my family, have to sacrifice my, time and energy in order to have my resources. Like, there's just this story of, well, sacrifice. And I sort of hate to use that word so much, but I also appreciate naming what it is, that we just are like, can we have it all? Can and it's not about like having it all in a material sense, but it's like,
right.
Can we have all of us, like all of who we are, no matter what we're doing? And I love that you brought this up in the beginning, because I really would love to welcome women exactly where they are on their path. And there's like nothing wrong with having a job to ensure that you can pay for your life, like, have financial empowerment to make choices and invest in, healing and retreats and aspects of what you want to do, because you have the resources to do that. And also unique to the sacred remembering path is that we are all going to have our unique path. And
yes, and honoring that.
and completely honoring that. So it's not like, like jumping like I did was like definitely not as secure or, even smart, maybe in retrospect, as like making sure that that security is in place. So there's not like comparison. There's, I think one of the things that we're doing with the community is, just learning from each other.
Yes. Yeah, and that's what I love about it, because there is a member of the community who has this incredible relationship with God. And that's something I'm still working on because of my upbringing in church. And so I read her posts, I'm like, she models something for me, right?
Yeah.
And then there's another member who is very much sort of about accepting life as it is. And I admire that, because I can tend to get caught up in, well, this is not how it should be, you know? And so I
Yeah.
think it's all of us creating this beautiful picture and honoring each other's differences.
Yeah. Like these scripts and these ideals that we just pick up along the way, or like scripts about how it's supposed to be. And then we're all disassembling those, and we could call those like programs or um, implants or inserts. I use those words, but it's like we get programmed with these ideas that it has to be a certain way. And then, we're waking up to the truth of who we are. And I think what we're inherently speaking to here is that it's ongoing,
Mhm.
like this
Yes.
path of awakening and standing in the truth of who we are. It's like, um, hindsight's 2020, but like looking back, I can see how much like fight there was in my original, like, I'm gonna stand in the truth of who I am, and I'm gonna just like get there. I'm gonna get to this place where I'm standing in the truth of who I am. And it was like um tiring and almost like an illusion, because that path is ongoing. And well, personally, I'm just like really loving softening
Mhm.
into that acceptance. It's like the return of innocence, right? Like
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
and
I like
and,
that.
and integrity and love, like you said in the beginning, and like a self-love to be more accepting of um golly, all we're doing, like we're doing so much in disassembling this programming within us as modern women. And we're doing so much to regain the sovereignty of our energy from like stuff we didn't even know existed, like unseen forces, and it's like the more we wake up, the more we realize the more there is to do, And so it's like, oh, I am going to be standing and practicing standing in the truth of who I am, because the truth of who I am is this source connected, God connected self.
Mhm.
And the architecture of that, like the energetic architecture of that, the consciousness of that has been systematically like targeted, or like um our confusion is purposeful. It's
Yes.
like we were confused on purpose. And then it's like, it's not just remembering that we were duped, it's also like remembering on the soul level the truth of who we came to be.
Mhm.
And like, I have this sense of like, I'm not going to get that done in one lifetime. I've been at this like many, many lifetimes, I assume. And, it's like, I feel this renewed mission and vision, especially around sacred remembering, where it's like, I want to do as much as I can for this mission while I'm on this planet. Like, and then after I am not in this physical body anymore, there's going to be even more remembering than that. It's like we're remembering forever. And that's awesome, because there's like no achievement awards
Yeah.
for
Thankfully. Yeah.
you know and the disillusion was like very deep, very deep. And so I know, well, the topic of judgment recently came up in the sacred remembering community. like self-judgment, not judgment of one another, because I think we do a like incredible, almost like miraculous job of like not judging each other. It's like,
Agreed. Yeah.
what is this utopia of women together who like, just is so loving and so accepting and uplifting. But the self-judgment kind of creeps in like, oh my gosh, it took me 5 years to learn that, or oh, I'm just now catching on to this or that, and I said to one of the women, it was actually in a private message, like, you know, I'll try to not judge myself. I'll try to promise to not judge myself if you
Mhm.
don't judge yourself about like, how long it's taking, that kind of thing. So I don't know if you experience that, like, are we there yet? Like,
Yeah. My favorite way to judge myself is I thought I was done with this. Like
yeah,
when I circle around to something again. And so
yeah,
something I try to embrace to help myself not judge myself is, other people have said it's more like a spiral, right? Like
yeah,
when you're coming around to something, it doesn't mean that you haven't made progress. And I kind of hate that word, but to
yeah.
express ideas, we have to sometimes use this
Well, I think
limited
it is, yeah, I think it's
language of ours,
progress.
but like
Yeah.
it's a different level. It's a different level. So yeah, I definitely know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And I am actually okay with the word progress because I think we can redefine it a little bit because, um, you know, like this idea of like ascension or like ascending within or ascension, like we're bringing more light into the space of the body. We're bringing more consciousness and awareness into the space of the body. Um, and so I think the more we do kind of transmute that trauma and density of the old, or like, you talk brilliantly a lot about like religious programming. And the
Mhm.
more we, clear that stuff out of there, the more source connected we are, the more we are connected to our own soul, our own light, our own truth. And then I think that's progress, like, oh yeah, I'm making progress. I'm more myself than I
Yeah.
was with that baggage.
And I think the levels or stages of awareness change too, right? I know when I first started this journey, when something would come up, it would almost be like, oh my God, like freak out, like, why is this happening to me? Right.
Yeah.
And then maybe you sort of move to, okay, now I see this is something that I do need to clear to be closer to my true self. And then sometimes it almost starts to get to be a game, of like, oh, I see what's happening here. I'm going to choose differently this time. Like you start
Yeah.
to get a different level of awareness about things
Right. Right. Yeah. That whole thing, like it's not happening to you, it's happening for
for you.
you.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, yes, and like I'm like my bullshit detector is like, yes, and like sometimes we're just dealing with like uh, I don't know, I would say like a fallen architecture or fallen
Yeah.
matrix or something like that. That's like, we have to learn from it. And I think, again, we do that by embodying ourselves and our God nature, and that heals the architecture of our light body. And then, like, we end up kind of healing that, like the external by healing the internal. Um,
Yes, yes, agreed. Like I won't share any here, but times in my life where I was fighting and fighting something or whatever, like externally, but then when I changed inside, the situation changed almost overnight. It was sort of like, what just happened? It
right.
really, really opened my eyes up to some things about
Which
energy and how all that works.
totally changes the game. Like for women who have used our energy to play a part, or like back to sacrifice, like just did what we needed to do to kind of fit in or to have our resource needs met. What we're starting to talk about here is like a whole different energetic that changes when we do stand in the truth of who we are. And then we watch the external reflect that we've just influenced the external by being in the truth of who we are.
Yeah,
Yeah, super powerful.
definitely.
Yeah, okay. I am gonna look at my note paper because I feel like we just like woo, we like went for it. So, you know, when I this is kind of a fun story. I don't know that I've ever like told it on the podcast, but the Sacred Remembering podcast came to me in late 2019, like after I did my TEDx. And I took this like little 2-day class on podcasting with a local guy. And the homework the first night was to like record the intro to your podcast and come back the next day on day 2 and like play it for everyone and you know, and then get feedback. And so like the first intro that you heard in the first season, maybe second, third season. By the way, my seasons have kind of been like half a year. So like this is season 7. If anyone's like, how did you get to 7 already? It's like, well, there were just these natural sort of like upgrades every, 6 months or so in the past. And then interestingly, the break was 6 months that we took about. So there's that. But I got back to the class the second day and played the recording, and everyone in the room was like, oh my God, I have full chills. Like it was felt, and it was, the words have not changed. It's like modern women waking up to the truth of who we are and standing in that truth. And one of the things that feels different to me now, as we move sacred remembering forward, and as it kind of came, the message came to me to like, deepen into sacred remembering, like do not leave it, like deepen, this is your mission, and that came, it was like, and the third part is like, not only are we standing in our truth, awakening to the truth of who we are, standing in the truth of who we are, we also want to align our prosperity to the truth of who we are. And that's reflected in this new intro as well. And in a lot of the new activations that I'm feeling. And it's certainly been my, round and round the proverbial onion of like, the awakening. The lesson is like to fully trust. I think it's a trust thing. It's like a full alignment in the truth of who I am equals the prosperity of who I am. Like there's not that separation. And my soul is like the circling that I've needed to do, as a soul to like get this or embody this. Like I want to say like the circles are getting closer and closer together. It's like I can like feel that it's almost like aligned. And yeah, like naming that's been my maybe the hardest part of like because I was so loudmouthed, like it wasn't necessarily hard for me to stand in the truth of who I am. I think it's been hard when the truth wasn't pretty, like to stand in the authenticity of the truth when it's a mess, which I, over the last year, I feel like I've done more and I'm more committed to that. And like you and I both are very just focused on integrity as a overarching like value of how we do any of this. And so the alignment with the integrity and the truth, even when it's messy, and like modeling the mess, and personally like moving away from that coaching industry where I think everyone feels like a pressure to present the good stuff, and the have it together stuff, and then not a lot of space to share like, well, this is where I still struggle stuff. But where I have found that, like, where I have been like flexing that new muscle or finding that is within the community. It's not like Sarah Poet's community. It's like we're all there and like we're all still like simultaneously like so gorgeous in wherever we are on our path, and always getting closer to the sacred truth. And this is kind of a long like ramble, but that was not a ramble, a longer tangent maybe, or whatever. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. I kind of interrupted myself with that like negative self-talk there. But just to say that, like, I appreciate the community and the community members for practicing the realness and like the gorgeousness of everything that every woman is in there. Like, there are no judgments or insults or like, oh, you're not there yet, or anything like that. It's like this curiosity and a celebration for where each woman is, and then a sharing, and the alchemy that comes from the sharing. And it's just so much less pressure than I think we get from the outside world as women to like have it together and, present as if we have it all together in order to make money at the endeavor that we are, embarking on. And allowing the field to shift around, worth really as women, and like we can show up imperfectly on the path of sacred remembering and be valuable as fuck, be lovable as fuck, like this both and graciousness that I think is really being brought forward now.
Yeah, I definitely experienced that in the community as well. And it really is such a gift. I think to me, the most important part is there's not an external standard of truth, right? Like my favorite thing to talk about, like the church, there's not an external standard of truth. It's supporting each woman aligning to her truth. And I do want to say, because I love you, and for any new listeners or new women who have just found the community, I do think that is in part to you, because I have always experienced that from you as well. Like, first as a client or whatever you want to call it, and now more as a friend, and not coworker, but whatever you want to call it, me helping with things behind the scenes. And what leadership does is so important to the culture of the whole of whatever you're doing. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm like, what words to describe Audrey?
Oh,
like,
well, that's not why I started this. I just was
I know, but like, oh gosh, yeah, friend, colleague, like, and so Audrey believes in sacred remembering, which is like, I probably would have given up like a couple times right now, if not for the way you have believed in sacred remembering. Like, let's be clear, I could cry right now.
I know. Don't get us started.
And really one of the most recent times was like in May, and I was getting the divine nudge to return to this, and then other things were kind of falling apart, and I put up a prayer like on a hike. I was like, okay, I need a sign that I am to go in this direction. And that day you called me, like didn't text message, didn't like
Yeah,
WhatsApp.
we
It
usually
was
don't
like,
call each other.
we didn't, yeah. And you called and you were like, I'm in. How can I help? And I was like, well, that's a sign. you know. And so I mean that co-creative energy is gosh, it's incredible, Audrey. Thank you. It's like part of why we're here for sure. Yeah.
You're welcome. And thank you, because sometimes I do wonder like where I would be now if I hadn't come across you on Facebook. Gosh, is like 7 years ago now or something. I don't know. It's been several years.
Yeah, right. And then, so it was like we were just like gung ho, like, yes, remembering feminine, remembering masculine, healing it all. And then there's like, life kind of explodes. And, we're like both open to, I'll say God or source or truth, like even more, sort of in a rough and tumble way. And, yeah. And then, so I want to try to name some of the energetics that are happening with the community and
Mhm.
with the ministry, although I didn't actually plan to talk about this today, but I trust that together we can weave something here to share with folks. But we have definitely left the paradigm of, well, I'm talking energetically and maybe ideally, not necessarily that we are seeing it in the physical or experiencing it perfectly in our physical lives. But we've left the paradigm of like every woman for themselves. Um, yeah, the paradigm of like the guru or the leader or the coach that has it all together and has all the answers, and then is just like selling the programs and everyone's just learning the, information in those programs. It's like I let that fall from my life, like not really knowing if anything would come back together. I'm definitely still wondering what's all going to come back together. And one thing that was really clear, well, not really clear, clear enough through the like caterpillar, muck of the process was to actually kind of close that timeline of like LLC and coach and, person that has it all together, and to form a ministry, which is a different legal structure. We're going to have Amber Sansala on the podcast to talk about that. She's also a community member. And the Sacred Remembering community had existed since September of 2021. Like we've been there in a couple of different iterations, but mostly, a very steady community where we experience very sacred, very beautiful things. Like we do everything from community calls to actual ceremonies and sacred events. And yeah, like we were a couple of differences about the energetic there that I will mention. And then Audrey, I'd love to hear what you would add, what we've already shared about like no one having all the answers. That's a really beautiful thing because as we bring, our exploration into the space, there's magic. There's like, what one woman says, another woman needed to hear. And the more we trust that, the more we experience that. And then the other thing that I'm going to be, we are going to be building out in the future. And part of this is just, energetically guided. Like it's called Heartland Ministries. Audrey is a co-trustee, Lisa Hines is a co-trustee, and the three of us now are doing this. And, the energetics are going to be revealed as to like how this all works out. But the space, which is structurally held in Mighty Networks, is going to also be a space where women, as we step into the truth of who we are, we get to share that truth casually, and then more officially, maybe making our own, each woman in there making her own offerings, trying them out. We've had people who've like awoken to a truth and then practiced a modality and then shared it with us in the community. And then women who have, purchased like services or readings or things like that from other women and probably even told their friends, right? So it's generating prosperity in a group setting, which is, we want to be in these new earth regenerative energetics. And so sacred remembering is, it's a living, breathing experiment that's, walking forward and is held in, in the energetic, I'll say, and like intention that is Heartland Ministries. So gosh, no, I don't need to do another podcast episode on that, because that was like a summary right there of, of the intention and therefore alchemy that will continue to build from there. I have a vision of like, a full, just vibrant, like hub of women standing in their sacred truth, their sacred work, offering that forward, and we're building women's prosperity, like as a
Yes.
result of that.
Yeah, I get excited about that too, because where I am right now with my 9 to 5 is, I can log off at the end of the day and forget about it. And I love that. And like I also spoke to at the beginning, it still feels like there's my 9 to 5 Audrey, and then there's like the spiritual Audrey, and wanting to feel more integrated like throughout all my life. And so I'm excited because I think myself being able to make a living being who I am and helping others, and then helping other women also get to that point, is just the best thing ever.
Yeah, right. And one of the things that I love about like having this conversation with you right now is that knowing, like, having known you for this many years and knowing like how far we've come, individually and a sacred remembering, and then like knowing that there's so much inside of each of us that still hasn't been brought into the world. And oh, I just got chills, like in my heart, I got chills, because when I think of what's inside of you
Mhm.
and how the world needs it, like Audrey can help us recover from religion and patriarchal trauma around religion. Like that's such a special gift of you, and like I think why you're here. And so it's like in me to be like, the world needs what's in Audrey. Like that is where I feel this mission like just opening in me like a red rose. It's like, I know that the world needs what's in Audrey,
Mhm.
and maybe the world also needs what's in Sarah Poet. I think that's probably true, but
Oh
like
yeah,
right
yeah.
right now it's like more motivating in this like loving and community space. It's more motivating, honestly, for me to be like, Audrey, let's get it out of you. Like, how do I support you, in like bringing this forward? So, whether that I won't, I don't want to pressure, so I won't, but it could, like whatever that creation is that wants
Right.
to like spark. And then my goodness, like I just hope that sacred remembering community is a space where more women feel comfortable to stand in that truth and watch their prosperity grow than like the experience that I had for almost 5 years of trying to do it on my own and being like, no, really, y'all, it's awesome. Trust me. Like after a while, I was like, I don't want to self promote anymore, because it felt like self promotion, but it was like, I really wanted the work out there and I wanted to make a living at the work, but the self promotion is like the worst part.
Yeah,
Like
I don't like that either.
by far. And so just how cool to have a community of women that like, first of all, is witnessing it as your truth. Like, we know this about you. We know that it's your gift. Like when you
Yes.
start talking about it and like we all light up, we're like, that's our truth. And I will tell the audience, the listeners right now that like when a woman starts to speak her truth, there's just a different frequency. Like it's like ding, 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 that's it. And it's funny because I can't like I've channeled a lot of things. I've said a ton of things like on this podcast and elsewhere. And so I don't know that I recognize myself when I'm in that frequency, but lately I've been noticing that when other women are like talking to talk or talking to like sound smart, which is what we do, like, and I'm saying that and then I'm laughing because I just wrote that about myself in a blog post. Like I'm just kind of, naming like we've done a ton of this is like, oh, I got to say something smart on the internet today, and we
Yeah. Gotta
that
produce
sounds
content.
good Lord. Oh, so much pressure. And it feels so different to hear a woman in her
Mhm.
frequency. Like the frequency of her soul truth is different.
Agreed.
It's like it lights everything up, it turns everything on. And
And
we're
it's
all
like
like,
you feel it somewhere. We all have like our different tells, right?
yeah,
But sometimes it's chills, but it's like, yep, there's medicine right there.
yeah, yeah. And you want more.
Hmm.
Like, I want you to tell me more about religious recovery. And like, I swear no one remembers the Bible like Audrey does. Like, she'll like pull out these quotes, and in my mushy brain, I'm like, yeah, that. Like, great attention to detail. But it's your medicine.
Well, this might seem a little off topic, but ever since you and Lisa and I have started talking about, reconfiguring Heartland and the business structure, I just see us as being a lighthouse. And for me personally, like a lighthouse for women who have started to go, this whole religious thing is not working for me, right? And it's not a lighthouse again to say you have to come over here and do it like we do, but it's more like, no, come here and we will walk beside you as you figure it out.
I
That
love
just
that.
it stuck with me, that lighthouse image.
Hmm. I'm gonna ponder that. I like that. Yeah, because the lighthouse is like a guide,
Hmm.
a safe harbor.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Lately I have been I guess seeing myself as, like there's me and my personal offerings. I don't think I'm saying this altogether the way I want to, but I'm gonna go with it. There's like my path and the things that I might formulate as offerings as a result of what I found on my sacred remembering path, right? And then there's like the stuff for the community.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
my path of awakening um is this reconnection into the creational grid structures, and I believe that it is truth, and I talk about it on here, and it's going to be who I am everywhere. And if a woman comes into sacred remembering and doesn't have that truth, um there's like an offering of information, but there's no like, you've got to buy in exactly to this.
Hmm.
Like I talk about the 12 tree grid, or the 12 pointed tree of life, and the Kabbalah and Jewish religion has the 10 tree grid, the tree of life. And like that has been something that we've started talking about in the sacred remembering community, but we have women that are practicing a Jewish faith and have been raised that way, and like their lineage has been raised that way. And so like to start talking about these things with curiosity, not saying like, this is the way it is, but like, here's some information. Can we get curious about it? Or what is inspiring each of us? On that sort of like breadcrumb path. The breadcrumbs is like the word that we've used so much on this podcast of, like, let's just talk about this for a moment and begin to wrap up with our final thoughts. It's like, how do we know we're on our sacred remembering path?
Mm.
How do we know that we're on it? Like, what does it feel like? And what to trust?
For me, I would say it is individual for each woman. And then I'll share, because I was really thinking about and feeling into this more than anything. So I took a vacation day. It's a Friday. So I took a vacation day and I scheduled a pedicure. And my old self would have taken Sarah's mind map and made notes about everything I wanted to say. But new self is like, no, I'm going to relax, be pampered, and just like close my eyes and feel.
Yeah.
And so there was a point where I was all relaxed and I closed my eyes and I was thinking, I just was saying sacred remembering like over and over in my head. Like, what does that feel like to me? And it feels like peace, but like all of myself is sort of concentrated about right here. And so
Like
it's
below
not
the
an
heart,
outward
like kind
focus.
of solar plexus kind of.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
somewhere around heart, solar plexus. Yeah, sorry for audio people only. Yeah, so no external focus, just peace, and like all of me is right here. So to me, that's what sacred remembering is. And also, like, as things come up, like pain about my church experiences or just living as a woman in this culture in the United States, you start to learn, and it is okay to give yourself time, right? You might, if you're just new to this and coming out of something, don't expect yourself to know this, but give yourself time. So I have learned that when it is like my sacred truth, sacred remembering, like it's that sort of peace, it comes from a certain place. Whereas I'm reacting out of wounding, it's sort of more out here. And again, sorry for people can't see me, but I'm kind of like coming at you like an animal might, right? Like it's this rawr, like it's this external out energy.
Right. And the boundary energy, like there's so many people talking about boundaries. I'm glad that we're like getting, oh, we don't want an energetic enmeshment. Great news to discover that, right? But when we have a boundary or we're like protecting ourselves from something in the external, we're using a lot of our own life force energy to do that. It's like being in the perpetual fight, as a woman, like, defending ourselves from external forces or external judgment or just opposing the patriarchy or, reacting to something stupid that's happening in the world or something a man did. It's like all of that is actually wasting our precious life force.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
if I can add one more thing too, I would say something I've learned is, I think with sacred truth too, it almost feels like this is something I have to do, right?
Yeah.
Again, it's that internal, and I'm pulling my hand down, right? Like it's guidance from God or source, universe, whatever you want to call that power. So it's not about manipulation, right? And it's disconnected from the effect of what I might have. And that is not carte blanche, right? To just say whatever you think all the time, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, I have to do this. And something out here might happen, but that's not the point. It is about me following what I think I need to do.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. Yeah. It totally comes from within. And then I just want to say, like, from the experience, you said, like, it doesn't matter whatever anybody does outside. When tying your truth and your mission to your livelihood and making money, it's really easy to be like, but, are they accepting me? Is anybody getting this?
Mhm.
Is anybody paying for it? Like, oh my God, it's not working. I have to, and then it's like, am I going to walk away from this like truth or mission, or am I getting it wrong, or am I still on the path? It's very confusing.
Yeah.
It's very confusing, but I love what you said about like it comes from within and you just know it. And there is like I haven't said this out loud yet. Like recently I've been in this space where I'm like, okay, either this plane's going to go up or it's going to go the fuck down. But like I'm driving it, and it's like I have to stay so focused on what I know my mission is. It's like that time.
Mhm.
It's like this is coming up through me, like kind of like a geyser, or like like a hot spring. It's like if I it's like the ultimate faith, to be like, this is who I am. And I trust, well, and this trust takes a lot of like maybe a lot of time, but maybe not for as the planet like, lights up with all of the yummy ascension energy, like maybe it'll be easier for people. I hope sacred remembering makes it easier for women to stand in the truth of who they are. And then it'll be like, I am that beam of source connected light that like if and that's how I see it, is that this truth inside of each of us is God connected, is source connected, and like our feet are on this soil because it's also earth connected. And so it's like I am not here to be Audrey, and Audrey's not here to be Sarah, but and this is what I'm talking about in the intro when I'm saying that we light up the grid. It's like when Audrey stands in the full truth of who she is with her feet in the soil and her heart open, it's like that's what we came to do. Like that truth is like we just connected the light from the planetary network into the human body network. And that's what connects us back up to, when people are like heaven on earth, it's like, well, how the freak do we think that happens? Like it happens when we reignite our light bodies. And that's
Yeah.
how we do it. Like sacred remembering it's the truth of who we are, but that's not cute. I've said this so many times. It's not about like, oh, that's cute. Look at you standing in the truth of who you are. It's like, we know that there's also something bigger that we're here to offer. And, I want to name that it's like, it is this path of soul awakening and spiritual awakening. And like, can I stand in this truth? But I think what makes that easier for us to stand in the truth is when we remember that it's also connected to a mission. Like when people talk about purpose and mission, well, what's your purpose? What's your mission? It's like the thing that you care so much about. You're going to love this, Audrey, because like we talk about anger sometimes. I just recently heard someone say, your mission is the thing that you get so pissed off about. So like that sacred anger is like I get so pissed off about women feeling so depleted and knowing that the answers to like what this planet needs are inside of women that don't feel confident in their
Yeah.
truth. Like that pisses me off. And it pisses me off that women's energy is siphoned into disgusting, like places, which is a bigger topic that I'll talk about in other episodes or other places. But it's like the siphoning of feminine energy such that we have no idea why we're tired or depleted or like struggling to have our resources. It makes me so mad that I'm like, oh, I'll devote my life to that, to making sure that more women know that and more women are like, well, not in that negative grid work, but standing in the positive light, grid work of the planet and of themselves, and reconnected to source and bringing that mission through.
Yeah. And
I
I
say
think,
some far out there things, and then you are welcome to like bring me back around, Audrey.
no, I was going to agree with you, actually.
Okay.
I think it is so key because I have healed a lot from what happened with me and the church. And yet there are some times still when I feel that anger. And I have also recognized, not that I always catch myself doing it, but I've recognized that when I rage against something, I am wasting energy that could be put to a better use, right? So instead
Mhm.
of raging against patriarchy or the church or whatever, how can you harness that energy into something else? Like, is it writing about it? Is it making a post in the Sacred Remembering community? Is it
Yeah.
whatever? And so it's
Is it like feeding the children, making an online
a
course,
practical
like
thing. Yeah. Is it
whatever?
a super
Yeah.
practical thing? Go
Yeah.
volunteer somewhere, right?
Right.
Like, and help somebody face to face.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And this is what I think is like emerging in planetary consciousness, and it is in me in new levels, is like this is creational energy.
Mhm.
Like this is where we really start to take it back and really start to light up the globe. To be honest, it's like this is where we ignite the fuck out of it, is where we stop opposing and wasting our energy,
Yeah.
but like take that thing that we care about. And it's not like we're, you know, sitting on the meditation cushion, just like, and I also want to say to your like very original point, like, how do we do this as modern women? I think about this a lot. My life is very kind of ceremonial. I spend a ton of time like in the woods, in meditation, taking care of my body, trying to remember, all of the things. And it's like, um, and I'm a mom and I have three
Yeah.
pets, and I got to pay the rent, and like we have these modern day responsibilities, and there's a whole, I feel like that might be like a whole other episode or something. um but I will say that I believe that for sure we can do it. Audrey's having a cough attack. Like for sure we can do it. And I think it's like part of the modern day, like it's definitely part of our modern day awakening, but it's also like part of how the feminine just rises right now, is like, yeah, I am, I'm affecting all of these networks. And, it's like maybe our superpower is like helping to create new educational systems, or new food systems, or gardens at our kids' school, or like things like that. It's like the things that women are just naturally going to care about, and we're going to like put our energy toward. It's like, as we realize these things, yes, there is the act of finding sacred community, having the sacred practices, healing the nervous system, healing the body of trauma, taking care of your body with the right foods, all of that. And the like action of, where you invest your creational energy, like
Yes.
where you invest the things that you care about, is like creational energy in women creates, not to sound redundant, but like creational energy moves things forward. And so either we can like be zapped of our creational energy and be tired and like drink a glass of wine and zone out, or of course that's an extreme example, or we can like become aware, oh, this is, how this old system has depleted my energy, and made it hard to care and made it hard to like stand in the truth of who I am. But, as I do that, I am re-devoting my creational energy into what the world needs.
Yeah, and I would add too, because we have stressed how important it is to honor each woman's journey. If you honestly feel that you were put on earth to be an activist and speak out against something, then by God, do that, right? Like, we're not saying don't do that. I would just caution, like, what what is the intention of what you're doing? Is it to speak out against power and point out things so more people start to look at it? Or is it to rage against them, right? And like
Yeah.
waste, like you said, that creational energy.
Yeah. 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 So I think Audrey's throat is letting us know that we have done enough
Yeah,
talking
don't know what
because
happened there.
she's having a coffee in a bit. She was like moving some collective energy, out of the throats of women, I'm sure. Um, yeah, so I don't know if I've said it like 0 times or 3 times during this podcast episode, but I just want to really say, kind of in conclusion, personally, that I just know that the answers to where we're going, or like the answers, the solutions to what the world needs are inside of women. I know it. Like I know it because I've lived it. Like I know it because I know these answers are inside of me. Like some of the answers are inside of me. Some of the answers are inside of Audrey. Some of the answers are inside of each of the women who are now being like, I want to put my feet in this new soil. And yeah, I am in service to that opening. And it is so gorgeous. And it's just so possible. Like if anyone has listened to this episode and it's like, there's no like start and stop to the journey, like we said, but maybe you're just starting and maybe it feels freaking scary, like you got this. More and more as we're demonstrating here today, we're going to be doing this together. You're welcome in the Sacred Remembering community if that resonates. And yeah, we need the truth inside of women, and we need the healing and the reconnection of women to that, like just the light that you are, the source truth that you are. And so I'll say we are in service to that.
That's it.
Anything else? That's
That,
that.
that
Thank
right
you.
there.
That's what we're doing. So yeah, I'm grateful for this like new field of energy, this new grid that's been cultivated. I know that we're all a part of that. These changes are planetary right now. And so I'm grateful to the space. Audrey, I'm grateful for you being here. Grateful to all of the Sacred Remembering sisters, community members, and thank you for letting me use some of our examples in this episode. And thank you, listeners, for being here and just walking your authentic path at this time. It is so, so important.
Yes. Thank you.
So much love, everyone.